me, Hattie, and I am back with part 2 of the witch's house. So this is the whole of the interior for the build. I'm actually really happy that I did it in 2 parts because the interior took me so long because I decided that this is going to be the new house that I'm going to be using for my new Let's Play. It's going to be something to do with witches and I'm planning it at the moment. I haven't thought of everything yet, but I've thought of some of the details. So I wanted this house to be very detailed and I wanted it to be the best effort that I could possibly put in because I really wanted it to fit with the characters and be really interesting, and of course you can use it yourself if you want to. It's on the Sims 4 gallery. So I really did put in probably the most effort I've put in on an interior in a very long time. It's got pretty much everything I can think of. I even put in a basement, which is quite rare for me, let's be fair. I never put in basements, but with this house I did because I really wanted to. The house itself is very tall. I had some problems with the roofing, but I did move it back, so I hope you don't mind that. Some roofing does come through, but I don't think it's a lot. I don't think it's anything to worry about. There was a question that I didn't answer because I forgot, sorry. But somebody wrote about having problems with roofing and if it would be an issue with this build, and I really don't think that it would be. So I feel like it's absolutely fine, and I don't know, for a witch's house, I would love a good old attic and just something that would look really mysterious. That's what I did there. Loads and loads of staircases. It did remind me a little bit of Howl's Moving Castle in the way that it was just very brown, just like that build really. But this one was a lot more detailed than Howl's Moving Castle, and also I don't sound like a ghost on this video. What actually happened in Howl's Moving Castle was the song at the end, for some reason you were only allowed to use a song if you had your voice playing over it. So what happened was at the parts when I didn't have my voice playing over it, it got marked as copyright, so I had to take some of the song down, which meant that some of my voice went with it, and I ended up sounding like a ghost, and some of you really liked it, some of you thought I sounded so incredibly creepy, so apologies for that. But anyway, this build is just a really interesting build for me. I had a lot of fun and it just brought back a lot of memories for me, like Halloween and stuff. I've actually never done the whole trick-or-treat thing. I have always been really curious to what it's like and to do it properly, but as a child I think that I just lived in like a really protected background, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you're not allowed to go trick-or-treating, that's absolutely fine too. I was one of those kids, so my parents always came with me or I wasn't allowed to go, which was fine because I never really missed it. But it was just that the area that I lived around, I don't think that it would have been a good area to go trick-or-treating around by yourself. I think it's dangerous in some areas, but in other areas it could be really safe. Like for instance, when I go to Ibiza, it's often something there that the kids just go out by themselves, they don't need parents, and that's fine because some areas are really safe, some areas aren't. It just really depends on the area. But yeah, so anyway, Halloween. I always dress as a witch on Halloween. That's just because a witch's hat is the easiest thing to buy. So I always buy it for myself. And I always have like 5 or 6 witch's hats just in my cupboard in case I'm going to a party. And yeah, so if you ever wonder what's in my cupboard, it's probably a witch's hat. But anyway, this was when I was doing the downstairs. I was planning out the kitchen as well. The kitchen was actually one of my favourite rooms, surprisingly. And it was like an open plan kitchen. I thought that would be really cool, and also having like a chef working here, so it's going to be a training school for witches. I hope I've made it clear that it's going to be a training school for witches. I don't even know if I have. There's going to be like an old witch woman who owns it and she's looking after it. There's a supreme witch. I spoke a lot about it on the Create a Sim video, so if you haven't seen that and you want to, I will leave the links below, or I will leave a little post on the video now, so you could probably go and click up on there if you want to. There'll be like a little card or something there to go and click on it. But yeah, so it's going to be hopefully interesting. I haven't planned out all the details yet, but if you do want to help with it, I've got a forum thread going on Sims Amino, which is an app, and it's a way that I'm using to communicate with a lot of you for ideas and things that you may want to add to it. I think that making it as a team could be really good because everyone's going to have different opinions and ideas, and making a story together could be really interesting. So yeah, I hope to see you on there for that. If you have any ideas in the comments, of course, let me know because I always read the comments. And yeah, we'll see what happens. But this was a kitchen. So the kitchen started off being quite plain. I did add as many items as I could to it, so loads of things on the walls. One of the funnest things about this build was the amount of clutter that I used, so just going around and just thinking to myself what I can add on certain places of the wall to make it look a little bit more cluttered. That was really, really fun for me, and I don't usually attempt to clutter up builds like this, but for this house or for this training school, I wanted it very, very cluttered, just stuff everywhere, just really disorganized, and that was the look that I was going for. So if you don't like mess, then this definitely isn't the house for you. And I was not going for a minimalistic approach here. In fact, there were pictures all over the walls, and I think every single room was more or less the same style throughout. My favourite room was probably the basement, which you'll see in a little bit. That was the room that I spent the most time doing. I probably spent about an hour on the basement just going over what I was going to put in there. So hopefully you'll get to see my favourite room. I used a lot of items from the spooky stuff pack that we got a while ago for Halloween or around that sort of time. So pumpkins on the floor, things like that. I really hope that those pumpkins don't spoil, but I don't know if they do or not because I haven't tested it yet. A fountain in the middle of the hallway was here, and the reason why I put a fountain there was because I like the idea of having a fountain of youth. So I thought that would be a really fun feature, even though it can't be used by the Sims because they can't use the fountain. But having something there just for display was my main idea for this home. So lots of things are just for display, and I hope that that's okay. It's just that I just didn't want to have empty spaces anywhere. I wanted to clutter it up as much as I could. The dining room was quite formal. It also is supposed to look quite old and dusty, so I wanted it to be quite dark in here, and I tried using like a rug over a rug effect. And that is because I wanted it to look messy and scattered all over the place, and I just wanted a really interesting look in here. So loads of odd things, just things which you just wouldn't see in a house. Like, why would that art thing be there if there's no canvas or easel, or I don't know. Why would that be there? I have no idea. But I was just thinking, how can I make this interesting? How can I make this strange? And that's why I did it. So hope that's okay. The outside area was supposed to be like the garden. So this is the part which has the watermill, or the place where they can come out at night and they can make wishes to. The wishing well, that's it, that's what it's called. So loads of books there for potions and spells and whatnot. And yeah, I just thought just putting things around, just like bits and bobs that you may see in a garden or just clutter, would be really good for that part of the home, because I like the idea of having a decking area. I think that it's quite interesting to have some plants there too, because I like the idea of having the witches take certain parts of the plants for spells, things like that. So that's what I was thinking about. There was a room here that I forgot about, which was the bathroom. There weren't a lot of bathrooms in this build. I think there's only about 3, which I usually have more than that. I've started to cut back on the bathrooms though. It's not even on purpose, it's honestly just by accident, and I wish that I included another bathroom. I think looking back, I would have probably put a bathroom downstairs in the basement. So if it does bother you that there isn't a bathroom, or if there just isn't as many as you would have wanted, then you could definitely fit one in the basement somewhere, and that could be really interesting. This was the basement down here. So I started to put my cheats on at this point because I usually forget what to do. I actually forget my cheats when I'm building. I don't know if anyone else does that, but I use so many cheats when I'm building. Everyone asks me what cheats do you use and stuff. I use BB move objects, unlocks entitlement, show hidden objects, testing cheats true, I think as well. Loads of them. And they're really important for me when I'm building. Probably some others as well, which I just can't think about at this point in time. But yeah, so had to put those on, and that's what I did. I was also going through the show hidden objects menu, and I was picking out the things which I would find really important to have for clutter. This took a while, and it took a while because I wanted loads of objects just out, and I couldn't even decide where I was going to put them, how they were going to be arranged. I just wanted loads of things which look really witchy. So anything like death flowers, anything like gravestones, or places to keep fish. I don't even know. I was just putting just random things about. I also put some plants downstairs, which is really odd, but there's actually a different plant room, so you'll see that coming up in a little bit. There was also, of course, a secret area which is underneath the house. It's all barred up, and it actually leads to a secret place. So I actually opened it and I think that if your Sims use it, they'll be able to use it even if they don't have the handiness skill, as far as I'm aware. And the reason why is because the Sim, which is the Supreme Witch, has a handiness skill of level 10. So she opened it, and that should be available for your Sims to use if you do download the house. You could just use it yourself if you wanted to. This was the hidden conservatory, so I used these wooden plant boxes to keep the plants in. I thought that would be a really cool idea. There's also a cow plant in the basement, just casually adding that into the mix. Not that I mentioned it before, just thought I'd mention it now because there is, and that is one of my favourite features or things about the room in here, because I think that that is really interesting to have it here. It's also a good way that if I need to get rid of anybody, or if the Sims need to get rid of anybody more like, then they could have death by cowplant. I have no idea. I'm actually considering doing a little bit of an incorporation with the Black Widow challenge. So the Supreme is actually going to have like her own secret dungeon down here. It's a little bit dark, but she's going to get rid of some of the victims, some people that she doesn't like, preferably men. She has a real vendetta against men, and she's going to keep people down here. The poor Malcolm Landgrab, I think it was him, I think it was Malcolm Landgrab, or the husband, he was stuck down here and he couldn't get out. This was when I was testing it all out and seeing if it all worked and stuff, and seeing if the Sims could get past certain places in the house, and yeah, he got stuck in the dungeons, so it was really fun to see, but of course it was stressful for him, bless him. But he's okay now, he's safely out, and he should be fine, but we'll see what happens in the LP. I was just finishing off the conservatory area by adding some more plants, and I think I put the floor in like a grass colour, so even though you can't have grass downstairs, I think it looks quite nice like that. I originally had the hidden entrance there, but I really don't like it. It just does something with the feng shui. I think that's what you call it, like, I don't know, it just feels weird having it there. So I actually moved it, and you'll see where I moved it in a little bit, but I had separate places for the potions and the death flowers. So different places in the build where we could separate those things, which would actually make it look like a proper potion studio. And yeah, that's what I'm going to refer to it as, a potion studio. So loads of different places to keep just various objects, and I think that's really interesting for the LP. I would love to get to the point where maybe the Supreme could collect gravestones down here and have ghosts here, because I definitely want one of the characters in the Let's Play to be obsessed with talking to the dead and being able to bring people back, or something along those lines. So haven't figured it out completely yet, still playing around with ideas, testing it all out, but shouldn't be long until it's up and running, and hopefully you'll get to see it, and it should be fun. But yeah, just having fun here. What I was doing is I was enlarging some of these dolls. I thought dolls would be something interesting to put down here. Dolls could be quite creepy as well, so I thought that it would be nice to have maybe a collection of dolls. So you can't go through those with the normal kids section. You actually have to filter them out with the hidden objects menu, and you have to go and get them from there. So had to go to quite a lot of effort to get those dolls, so I did that. Some chairs there, just some wonky crooked chairs, which I thought went amazingly with the build. Even though no Sims actually made them, I just got them from using a cheat, so sorry about that. But I got them anyway, so I really like that idea. Of course, voodoo dolls here, because I wanted this to be the place where the witches would do their voodoo practice, so they'd go and pick a voodoo doll up from here. They probably keep all their dolls separate to each other. And eventually, I actually want to have pictures of people above the voodoo dolls. Whether that's the person that owns the voodoo doll, I don't know. It might even be the person that is having the voodoo doll things happen to them, if that makes sense. So let me know in the comments what you think about that idea, because I have no idea what's going to happen there. I actually started putting in the cauldrons at this point, and the dungeons were starting to appear too. I didn't really know how big I wanted the dungeons to be, and I thought going completely overboard and having like a secret entrance. So I went to a great amount of effort to do this. It's ridiculous how much effort I actually went to here. I don't think I've ever gone to so much effort to do anything like this in a build, but I really did. It's got like a hidden door, so nobody would even be able to see that there's a dungeons here. And if you like the idea of this, if you like the idea of there being a hidden room back here, then let me know, because what I can do is I can try and incorporate more things like this in my builds, make my builds more hidden, more secretive. So if you do download my builds, then you'll have things to explore. Maybe you'll forget about them and then you can go and explore them again. I have no idea. But yeah, just let me know what you want to do. This was when I was putting in some frogs, newts, things like that. I always think that frogs are always something that reminds me of witches, and that was just because witches tend to have pets like black cats, toads, things like that. So I put loads of just different reptiles down here just for spells. I don't really think that that's a bad thing to do. I think that maybe the Supreme or whoever's down here is a real pet lover. I personally love frogs, so wouldn't want any harm to come to those frogs. In fact, I'm actually thinking about breeding them. Not for myself in real life, just those frogs down there. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. This was the prisons that I was trying to rearrange here. So this is probably the worst thing I've ever done in The Sims 4, to be completely honest. Apart from, of course, having a sim have a baby with the Grim Reaper in The Sims 3. That was something that I was feeling pretty bad about. But no, I've never created dungeons before, and I was pretty intrigued to see how this would work down here. And I was struggling to get it to work. I, in the end, had to settle for the gates and the fences. So we did actually have some proper prisons that you get with The Sims 4 Get to Work. And I couldn't actually figure out how to use them. So if anybody knows how to properly install those gates and you can actually give me like a short walkthrough of a way that I would do that, I'd really appreciate it, and I might even be able to change that around. Like, if you're not happy with the way that the dungeons look, then let me know, because I could always change it. It just depends how everyone wants it to look, so just let me know. By this point, it was starting to look like a shop. It could actually be a witch's shop down here, to be fair. You could do loads of things with it, and if you do want to have this as a shop, then let me know, because that's really cool and interesting, and you could definitely do that. It just depends on what you want to do when you download off the Sims 4 Gallery. I was also just playing around with these jars here. The jars were, I think, containing things like eyes and just weird things. It was very American Horror Story, like really just reminded me of that. So definitely wanted to put some of those in just for the witchy look, and the room was very cluttered. I can promise you that all that stuff is moved from the middle by the end. It was looking really bad. I had a massive build-up of just reptiles. I just didn't know where to put them. I found these really cool bookcases though, which I loved, and you can actually stack things on top of them. You get them with The Sims 4 Get to Work, so if you're curious about how I stacked things up, that is how I did it. I just really like the look with that. I also used some glass here, so pretty unusual for a witch's old place, I think. I think glass is quite new, quite modern, but I think in the way that it's used with reptiles, I think it goes quite nicely together, and I was quite proud of how that turned out, so I hope you can like it. I was just rearranging the last bits. It took forever, it actually took forever. Something that I did like about this room though was the amount of blue that was here. So you'll notice that there's some blue on the floor and also on the walls in the form of like a rug, and then we have a picture. I really like that because I think blue is quite a mysterious, mystical colour, and I just think for a witch's room it goes really nicely. I was thinking about red, but a lot of the upstairs was red, so bear with me for that. But most of the speed build, to be honest, is in the basement. So hopefully you'll see how much effort goes into this room because it's rather a lot. And I actually tested it. When the cauldrons are on, I can honestly say that it looks really good. With the effect that it gives, I just like it. So I think that's going to be really interesting. And on the screenshots, I can imagine this area looking pretty fun, and with victims in the cells, I think that this whole area is probably going to be the most used area in the build. I just really like it. I was then just experimenting with stone. I actually used stone on the walls to make it look a little bit more like it's in the basement. I was then onto the top floors, so the other floors were quite small, so that is probably why I spent so long in the basement, and I was trying to make this massive board work and it just wasn't working anywhere. I was really regretting not putting it downstairs, so I actually moved the mirrors. I thought mirrors down in the conservatory may look a little bit odd, and also those mirrors are really modern, so I definitely wanted to move those. Don't really know why I put them there in the first place. This was where the girls are going to be sleeping, so this is going to be for the trainees, so not for the teachers. For the girls, they're actually going to the training school to board there and to learn more about their powers and things. This is where they're going to be staying, and I thought about making the room more individual, actually putting posters on the walls and things, and I didn't actually like the idea of that, because I think I did it a little bit, but just not as much as I have done it with other houses, like for instance the Pomegranates Let's Play. I went a little bit overboard in individuality with that, so the characters' rooms really do resemble what the characters like, I feel anyway. But I just felt with this, it was just a little bit generic, and that's how I wanted it. I wanted it just like an ordinary dorm room with maybe some posters reminding them of home and things, but not really that much. So didn't want to do that much with it. I put a fireplace in here to make it feel cozy, and I thought that this room, I wanted to make it feel inviting. There was a random roof there and it was coming through. That was one of the biggest roof disasters of this build, and when I looked on the outside, it was a roof that really couldn't be moved without drastic changes to the exterior, so I thought I'm going to cover it by a bush, which is really odd and unusual, but it's actually really, really cool that it's there because the Supreme came up when I was testing it, and yeah, anyway, she went in the bush and it was just a really fun, interesting thing to put in that room. I think it could be really cool for the build. It could maybe play a massive part in the Let's Play. I don't really know, but I'm going to leave it there because it's quirky, it's different, and I haven't seen it done before. This was the hallway to the upstairs, so some canvases here, other things that the witches might like to do in their free time other than sort of build on their skill abilities. I don't know, this is skill abilities. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I was back to the basement at this point and I was trying to try out the different prison doors that I found, and I couldn't actually get them to work, so I abandoned that ship in the end and I thought, no, I'm just going to have it the way it is because it looks absolutely fine and I'm okay with that. I did use these spooky stuff pack tables, which I loved the idea of. I also thought for the bathroom that I would have the really advanced shower, and I don't think that that looks witchy in any way. I do think that it is a little bit steampunky. I wish that we got more showers which look more traditional than we get, but they can still get your needs up pretty high. Like the wooden one I didn't want to put in because I think it's uncomfortable, and it's the same with the wooden toilet and things. As nice as it is to look at, I feel that it's just not going to be very practical, and also the stuff is going to break a lot, so didn't really want to mess about with that, so didn't do that. Now this was really, really sneaky what I did here because I did actually expand the house. I did, and I'm sorry, I should have done this on the exterior. I felt like this area needed a lot more room though, so that is why I did it. I wanted a big room for the Supreme, and I just wanted it to have a really fancy bedroom, so that is what I decided to do. Hope you're okay with that. So it's got a double bed in here. I was desperate to fit a double bed in here. Didn't really want to expand the back area. I thought the side was better for some random reason. I didn't really know. I thought this bed was perfect though. So all the beds are the same apart from the old green witch's bed that's upstairs, and she's got like a more traditional room and it's upstairs. But this is the Black Widow room, or at least this is the room with the Supreme. So this is going to be her bedroom. Lots of random portraits on the walls. I don't know why they would be there. Maybe they would be her ancestors. I don't really know. This would be a family house because her mum is, of course, the Green Witch. So still figuring that storyline out, but I would imagine that maybe they would be relatives of hers. She has dragons and things that are just on the walls, or things that would maybe resemble just things that you wouldn't normally see. So put loads of fish in there for some reason, so loads of things hanging on the walls, a nice rose as well, which I found quite romantic. I think that's quite an interesting room, and red is quite an unusual colour, so that's why I did that. And I think she also has some reptiles in there. So on top of a fireplace, she has like some frogs and things. So just some random witchy things, which I would think about there. For this area, I really wanted to have a meditation spot, and there wasn't a place where I could fit it. So I put one of the smaller ones, which you just sort of rest on. And I think that's going to be very good for making her look like she can do witchcraft, because I'm pretty sure that if your skill gets high enough, you could hover above it and things like that. So I think that that's going to be really good for her, and to make her look like she is a very powerful witch, I think that that's going to be a really good idea. This is her mum's room, so the Green Witch, the one that everyone thinks looks really, really creepy. She's up here. She's actually not, and I don't want her to be that creepy or evil or be the centre of attention for it. And the reason is because I don't want to judge a book by its cover, and I know that the stereotype is that the Green Witch would be the really old and miserable one, but I don't think that she's going to be as miserable as her daughter. But that is the end of the speed build, so I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you all for the Let's Play. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you all soon.